I would say that this is a wonderful and extremely powerful medicine that I've met many people who it's radically and massively changed their life in a very positive direction. But I would also give a warning that this is not a medicine you can do by yourself. And it's really good to take it slow and to find a facilitator or practitioner who's really done the hard yards, someone like Levi that's, facilitated for thousands of people, and then embrace it. If it feels like a very strong call for someone that they 100% want to do it, let it happen and let it unfold in its perfect time. And if you're 99% certain or, oh yeah, that sounds cool, I would say stay away. Enjoy your time without it. And when it does become 100%, then welcome it into your life and consider doing it.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Psychedelic Conversations. Today we have Leo and Levi in the house. Welcome both. Such a pleasure to have you. As always, I will say a few things around give a context about who you are and your work for our listeners, and then we can dive into your story and what brings you to this work and what are you actually providing. So I'm going to start with Leo. So Leo is the author of the Iboga Experience book, stories, experiences, and advice from the sacred and the secret plant that saves, heals, and transforms lives. You are currently in Peru, you said, so we can talk about that as well in your journey. And my second guest is Levi Barker, and he is an expert Iboga provider, and he helps people heal with some of life's most difficult problems. But he's also coming from a very different angle, because Iboga is known for addiction and recovery and other kind of, mostly addiction recovery, I think. But I love that Levi brings a very different angle, which is the traditional aspect of Iboga use and so I'm really looking forward to dive into this conversation. So Levi, let's begin with you. Let's welcome you and learn a little bit about your background, what brings you to this space, and if there's anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your work.
There's a couple important points. Let's see. So I came, like a lot of people hear about Iboga, or I began through addiction. And so I was a young opiate addict for quite a while. And eventually a good friend told me about Iboga. And yeah, even from that first mention, and Iboga itself sounds like a very powerful word, but long story short, I think I put some of this in Leo's book too. I did kind of the wrong way of doing it and did a home detox on my own, but it got me through it. It got me through the physical part of the withdrawal, and then that's kind of the first step. Now I'm not depending on anything physically, but I still don't really know who I am, what I want in life. And so about a year and a half later, the first kind of Bwiti shaman to come to the West came and started an Iboga retreat in Costa Rica called Iboga House. And that went on for about 8 years. So I ended up meeting him, started having ceremonies with him, and eventually started training to provide the medicine. And so, I first had Iboga about 14 years ago, and have been serving the medicine for the last 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. And so I'm here at Iboga Wellness in Costa Rica, which is a beautiful area. We're in the southern part of the country. And so, people come here for, depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD. And the one that seems to come up time and time again is not so great parents. So, we learn young growing up from our parents. And if our parents aren't in a good place to be able to guide us, then it can get difficult for us. So people come here in short just for healing. And it's very, I don't want to say it's a miracle or magic, but this medicine just works. Like, it works for people just getting themselves together, knowing who they are on a deeper level, which then leads to knowing what they want in life and what they want to go after. And so, it's really beautiful work, just seeing people like get reset on their path, bring it all together and move forward in life. So I'm very, very blessed.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And there is a theme that I see in people who are actually like authentic people working with the medicine of Iboga. They always say, let's not just go to the addiction part, because the mainstream right now kind of know Iboga as a medicine to recover from addiction. So I understand this is bigger than that. This is something beyond any kind of addiction recovery and all of that. So you mentioned Bwiti tribe, Levi, and this is, so before we ask Leo as well, so what is this medicine? You can both answer in different ways, but where is it coming from? For our listeners, maybe they just stumbled upon this conversation. They never heard of Iboga before. How would you describe Iboga?
On my end, I would describe Iboga as a tool to learn about how to live life. Because in the end, that's really, no matter what problems we're coming to Iboga with, like, that's what needs to happen. And, this medicine is very ancient, and you can definitely just, after having it, see just how old it is. Like, the wisdom of it is very old, because even though, our surroundings, technology, things have changed around us, we're still humans like before. So even, so the pygmies were the first people to work with this medicine. So it's a shrub that grows in the rainforest of West Central Africa, Gabon, Congo, Cameroon. And the pygmies were the first ones to use it. And, from using that, a tradition developed, and there's a lot of aspects to that tradition, including an oral tradition of the wisdom of the medicine. And so that's been passed down for a long time. And that's the thing we share with people here. But I would think of, really think of Iboga as just like a life advancement tool, something to get, we get a lot of people, and I'm sure it's all over, people just kind of feel stuck, if what they're doing is right, feel like there's something more for them, more in life for them. And Iboga has a way of getting people back on their path. And so really, really amazing plant and work.
Brilliant. And is it because it's an African root, I believe, the plant or the tree, it comes from tree or shrubs? Because I think Ibogaine is different. What's the difference if somebody didn't have any idea? How would you describe Iboga and Ibogaine?
Iboga is the natural plant. So the second layer of bark on the roots is what is used. And so within Iboga, you have many alkaloids, and then there's also ibogaine in there, which is used in a lot of the detox clinics. But that's the main difference in the two is, ibogaine is one alkaloid within this plant.
Mm-hmm. Is it true that Ibogaine can be extracted from different plants, not just the Iboga plant itself?
Yeah, it can. There's one other plant, Voacanga africana, which they semi-synthesize it and are able to make it into ibogaine, which is good because there's if Iboga was as big as ayahuasca, say, is right now, there probably wouldn't be enough medicine for everybody to come to it. And I think that's really part of the intelligence of Iboga. Just like at the beginning, it was the pygmies who kept it to themselves and didn't share it with anybody. Eventually, they brought it to some of the other surrounding tribes and taught them about it. And then eventually, like our teacher and some other teachers have come across the border to the other side of the world and brought Iboga. And so Iboga definitely has a timeline it's growing very, very rapidly. With that said, I know there's a lot of people with cultivation projects going now, just recognizing that there's not enough Iboga out there. And so that's a big part of kind of the next generation of Iboga is, making sure there's enough of the plant. And then we also want the plants in the wild where, they're happy just being left alone. And so, it's good that people are cultivating it.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. It's good I think it will be worth coming back to that because, with the the reciprocation, the indigenous use, there are lots of conversations are happening right now within the indigenous use of medicines, with whether it's mescaline or peyote or ayahuasca. So I was going to ask the same question, but I think we can come back to that a bit later. The cultivation and how can we also be mindful of this process and kind of help at least or contribute. So thank you for sharing that, Levi. So I'm just going to check in with Leo. Welcome, Leo, and maybe something about your background, what brings you to this space, and what was the process of writing your book?
Sure thing. So I was an atheist engineer with depression, anxiety, and incurable gut condition, IBS, for many years. And, I worked with 5 different specialists in Australia and had no relief. Nothing worked to cure my gut. And then in a point of desperation, I worked with ayahuasca in Peru in 2016. And, ayahuasca told me, this will sound weird, but she told me in a ceremony that I'll fix your gut, but your real work will start with Iboga. And I had never heard of Iboga at this point. Like I'd never read about it, never seen a documentary about it. It was totally out of my consciousness. And, I kept that in my mind and I was very interested in it. And then the next morning I was speaking to my friends and I said, hey, have you guys ever heard of this thing called like Iboga, Ibogi, Ebola? I had no idea what it was. And they said, I think you mean Iboga, which is a very powerful West African plant medicine. And so I kept that in mind. And then 2 years later, I went to Gabon and worked with Iboga, with Tatayo from the Ibando organization. And he's a Bwiti elder. He's been working with Iboga for over 30 years. And for me, it was incredible. I went in with the intention of curing my depression, my anxiety, and finding direction in life. And, it didn't immediately provide me with direction of what to do, but it definitely cured my depression and anxiety. And the easiest way to summarize it that I tell people is before working with Iboga, maybe 98 out of 100 thoughts in my head was depressive or negative or anxious. And then after working with Iboga, it's probably 1 in 200. And then I can find that thought or that reason. I think, okay, I drank some alcohol, or I had an argument with someone, or I slept poorly, or I've been working too hard. And that's where this depressive or negative thought is coming from. So it truly changed my life. It kind of gave me the opportunity to rebuild my life and rebuild my mind, which then set me up to live a much better life longer term.
Thank you for sharing. And the book is the tribute to your own journey of transformation, because there's also, are you sharing, because I've only just discovered you and I don't really know about your book, but it would be nice to hear what are you sharing in your book?
Yeah, sure thing. So the book is primarily interviews with 23 different people that worked with Iboga for a whole host of different reasons. So there's 12 interviews in there the people that worked with Iboga for depression, anxiety, eating disorders, general unhappiness in life, lack of direction or seeking direction. And then there's 10 interviews that have people that were working with Iboga for depression, or not depression, for addiction, for all kinds of different substances, from methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, pharmaceutical medications, all sorts of things. And then at the end is my interview, which brings us to 23. And then on top of that, I summarized all the interviews into kind of the best takeaways of how people can prepare for the experience, how they can medically be safe, how they can find a facilitator and a community to work with or a retreat to work with, how they can integrate, and just general tips for the experience. So I've tried to make one resource that it's like the go-to book of how people can work with Iboga or find out if they're meant to work with Iboga as safely, efficiently, purposefully, and wonderfully as possible. And then in the spirit of reciprocity and being in alignment with the plant, 55% of the royalties go towards Iboga conservation through a terrific charity called Blessings of the Forest.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. What a great project. So before we began the interview, I think you did say that you both come from a different angle. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that now. I think it'd be interesting to find out different ways that people approach this medicine.
Yeah, sure thing. I can talk about it quickly. So, Levi's probably seen more people come to medicine, but in my deep diving on the 23 different people I interviewed, I broke up into two categories that people come to it for either kind of the psycho-spiritual growth or the detoxing and addiction. But I think ultimately what Iboga does is it helps people be well and live their best life in community and in alignment with the people around them. So I think there's many different reasons why Iboga can call someone to them or someone can feel drawn to working with it. But ultimately, I think the end result is the same for almost everyone that works with it, with a great facilitator and in a respectful way, which is being well, being happier, living their best life, and working on the projects that they came to Earth to work on.
On my end, yeah, no, I definitely came initially for addiction, but then you still have to work your life out, and so it's definitely psycho-spiritual reasons as well, and learning how to live. Iboga definitely gives you like a couple concrete like next steps or actions that need to take place in your life, and then you got to go. A lot of things we just have to try first. We have to practice them. Then it leads to knowing them and them becoming a part of us. So yeah, post Iboga, there's definitely plenty of homework that you need to take care of afterwards to then really, that's the most important time. And the most important thing with any of these medicines is, how do they affect our lives and what happens for us? And so Iboga is a bit unique in that it stays in your body longer than other medicines. And so it continuously gives a little drip out of medicine. And what that does is just gives you clarity, like an inner confidence. Like Leo was saying, it keeps the mind at bay or manageable, where it's not, if we come to Iboga and we're really attacking ourselves all the time, then it's going to make you very aware of that, and then also show you the other way that we can think. And a lot of that comes down to practice. And so, the Iboga works it out in the mind, that's for sure.
That's brilliant. I learned the most about the Iboga through Hamilton Morris. I don't know if you are aware of him, through his documentary series. And one of his short videos, still on YouTube, I think we can link it to our listeners if they're interested. It was very intense. It was very, very intense, the way that he was presenting the medicine. So it's kind of, I always thought, I have my own ideas about these medicines. And I think I always say there's two medicines that I'm really nervous about. One is Iboga and the other one is 5-MeO. And so I don't know, do you agree with the intensity, and it's a difficult kind of ordeal or not, based on your experiences?
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
I would say that it can be very intense, but everyone's experience is what it's meant to be for them. So some people have blissful, incredible, just celestial experiences of being in heaven, and other people have extremely intense purging, the dark night of the soul, and very intense experiences. For me, my personal experience was extremely intense. It took me almost 6 months afterwards to kind of recover and feel normal again. And then I continued getting better. So it kind of wiped me out, kind of beat me up, and then it gradually rebuilt my life and my body and mind and heart from zero. And it kind of kept increasing for maybe, kind of even a way feel that it's still working on me now, almost 5 years later. So I think everyone's experience is different. It's an extremely powerful medicine that I think it's very good to approach it with respect and some degree of nervousness. But I think if you're working with a great facilitator or a great person who's really studied the medicine like Levi or Tatayo in Gabon, then there's nothing to really be worried about. If the calling to it is authentic and you feel really inspired to do it, and you take the time to prepare and get everything ready to do it, I think it's a wonderful medicine that only wants to heal us and help us.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, 6 months on Leo. I'm curious. I know Tatayo can dose people pretty well. Any idea on how many spoons you got?
Yeah, I had 14 spoons, which via Tatayo's ratios is probably about 70 grams. I think he does about 5 gram spoons. So it's a pretty huge dose.
Wow, that is a big dose. Very big. Yeah. Yeah, my mentor and partner, Gary, had a really, really big one during one of his initiation ceremonies. And he was like the same thing, 6 years later, still coming through. And that's an amazing story. It can be very, very intense, but it's not as, for some people, it's not as psychedelic as maybe they think it might be. It is psychedelic, but it's really unique in its own way as well. And so, I would say the longevity of the experience is kind of what gets people. Eventually they're like, okay, I'm ready to come back and sleep and, start eating again. And it can just be a while. With that said, Iboga very, very rarely is scary for anybody. It's not like a scary experience and, you got the dragons coming after you or whatever. Like you can guide it pretty well when you're in there. And so that's the main thing. People, come and they think it's just going to be this totally wild thing, and it is, but not in the way that they're thinking. So just letting them know, you're not going to be scared. You're going to, be fine. You'll know who you are still, where you're at, that sort of thing. And so, then it's about just caring for them and letting them know, this is part of the process. The hardest part of the experience, or at least, here, when we serve people, it's kind of like we start at the nighttime and we go through the night until sunrise the next day. And so during that nighttime, it's kind of like the medicine's going in, grabbing things and, scraping your inner walls of your mind, your body, and accumulating things. And then the next day, kind of eventually it slows down and a release happens. And so typically what people come in for, say if they're coming for depression, they're probably going to feel a bit more depressed the next day. They're going to feel it on a deep level. And what really hits is, whenever we realize those are the things that we're doing to ourselves, and it just really gets us in a deep way. And so that's the hard part. But then once people recover, physically, you kind of have to come back physically to feel the benefits of it and kind of know what happened. Because when you're in the middle of it, most people would say, this isn't helping me. There's no way that this is going to be good for me. So it takes that time to recover. And then once they come out the other side, then they're, really glad they did it.
Wow. Sounds very intense. So there is a lot of trust involved, which seems to be a thing in the Western sort of model of living. We tend to be very skeptical, and trusting is very difficult in the beginning. And a lot of people that come to the medicines, do you have that experience, Levi, that people kind of cannot trust instantly? So until Levi comes back, just wanted to check in with you about your experience. When you said that ayahuasca told you, I've heard similar stories from a lot of people. I have a friend of mine in the UK. He talks about some of these stories like, for example, the discovery of harpe, or discovery of cambo, or discovery of all these medicines, kind of they're all linked, and that's, in their sort of vision quest, they would kind of discover another plant. So it's almost for us in the West, coming from this kind of background, it's hard to believe. It's very difficult not to be skeptical. Do you get a lot of pushback when you tell that story?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are quite bewildered by it and it doesn't make sense. But my explanation for it now is that plants or a lot of the psychedelic plants take us to a very similar realm, whether someone calls it the realm of the spirit, the realm of imagination, a higher dimension. And I think all of these different plants, like whether it be ayahuasca, San Pedro, psilocybin, Iboga, they can all take us to the same place. So if we are in ceremony and engaging with them respectfully, it's not, for me, it's nothing weird that, I went to an ayahuasca ceremony and then the spirit of Iboga came through, because if it's a safe place and the container is well held, then I think lots of different spirits can come in.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that, because that's kind of my sense of understanding. Sometimes, I get people asking me about what's the difference, is this one better than the other one? Like, is peyote better than ayahuasca or, mushrooms? And I have this analogy that I say, I think they're all different doors, but we go to the same place depending on where we are. So I don't know if you guys agree. Levi, we lost you, but welcome back. So I would like to pick up on the trust issue, but what are your thoughts about, we were just talking about Leo's experience of ayahuasca telling him to go and experience Iboga. So these are the kind of stories in the West that, you might get a bit of a pushback, but I don't know. What are your thoughts and the differences of medicines and, going into the same place, the idea of that? Let's unmute you quickly.
Yeah, no, I think there's many different ways to get there, and some don't even involve psychedelics. And, the different medicines have a different personality and spirit to them and the way they teach. And so, one medicine may resonate more with, another person, and they can get what they need from it. So, definitely not like a Iboga maximalist, and I've gotten a ton from other medicines as well, and they've definitely been part of my path. So people, I think the most important part is people should listen to themselves, and that's one thing Iboga gives you, and something we teach here and in the Bwiti is being able to differentiate between your intuition and your mind. In our Bwiti anyways, we talk about our intuition being the way that our own soul guides us to the right direction that we need to go. And so, people get that call like, hey, there's something for you over there. Like, they should definitely listen to it.
This is like the $1 million question. What is intuition? What is it? Is it my mind? Is it my intuition? People find it very difficult to trust. Maybe we can tie in with the trust that I was asking you earlier. I believe the medicine path involves a lot of trusting to ourselves initially, and then, of course, whatever unfolds in that process. How do you deal with that, Levi, as someone, a provider? Is there a lot of fear and resistance that you see and observe in people?
Oh yeah. No, people definitely come in with a lot of fear. And mostly just because they don't fully understand how Iboga works. Once they usually get into it, they're like, I'm in for a long ride, but I can handle this. And so, making people feel comfortable, like being honest with them, giving them the truth, and understanding, even though I'm here and we have our staff, like, the medicine is the teacher. Like, that's what's going to do it for them, and not making any mistake about that. And, thankfully, most people like us and have a great time. But, as long as we can set the space properly for them and get the medicine in them, then good things, if they want it for themselves, then good things are gonna happen for them. but yeah, we need to spend time with people. Like, we make sure and speak with everybody individually when they're here and just get to know them about their life, what's going on, what's holding them back, what they need to work through. And so, and then doing that in a non-judgmental way. And, but the trust issue comes up most with people that don't trust themselves. And that's a pretty common thing. And so that's another lesson of the Iboga. It shows you it shows you the path to trusting yourself. And we trust ourselves by taking the right actions each day for ourselves, which leads to us trusting ourselves. If we, abuse ourselves or addictions or whatever it may be, then there's not going to be a lot of trust there. And so, the Iboga really gets people to see that they have it within them to make it, make the life that they want. And so, that's the most important part of it.
Thank you for sharing. Leo, was it difficult for you to trust in your own experience when you first came into it? It sounds like an arduous experience, the dosing. I would like to ask you about the dosing, but let's hear from you first about the trust.
Yeah, sure thing. So I had a lot of trust issues in my experience. I made a few mistakes which ended up being good lessons in how to prepare. I didn't have like a good friend or someone that I trusted review the place I went to. It was kind of the place that felt the best and everything was in alignment for that. But because of that, I really had trust issues. And, I was kind of skeptical of the people I was working with. Upon reflection, they were nothing but lovely, beautiful, kind souls that I have only the nicest things to say about. But there was a lot of trust issues for me, especially when someone's taking a huge amount of a psychedelic medicine, like it's a once in a lifetime experience for a lot of people. And in my experience, the first couple of days, I was very fear-based and very scared. And then I took a little microdose. They kind of test you as you're going along the process. And after I had the microdose, it was like all fear was removed. And I had no fear, and I was just trusting that this was the right experience. And later on, when I was writing the book, one of the interviewees was telling me that people like in Gabon, certain tribes use Iboga as a tool to remove fear. And they don't necessarily do it as like an initiatory dose or a ceremonial dose, but they do it in a certain preparation and treatment to address fear, because they see fear as a parasite, kind of like as if we had a tapeworm or something, and that Iboga is really useful in treating fear and helping us step through fear and work with it. So in my experience, that was true. Like even just a small dose, like 1 spoon as a microdose, really helped me step through fear and get over fear. But I will put a caveat on that and say, don't do 1 spoon of Iboga by yourself. Like I was doing it with a professional who'd been working with it for over 30 years. I was in a very safe container, doing it very respectfully. Iboga is definitely one medicine that, I say this over and over again in the book, you can't risk and you can't do it by yourself or doing it at home alone or even with a good friend. It's something that needs to be done in the hands of a professional and someone who really knows what they're doing.
That's brilliant. Thank you for speaking to the harm reduction approach, because from the video that I watched, Hamilton going through his experience within the I think it was a Bwiti tribe, I'm not sure. I mean, you need to really be careful. It is so serious, these experiences. I mean, a lot of our listeners, they know every episode we continually keep bringing the harm reduction aspect, because I think this is really important. And also thank you for mentioning your book and covering all of these. At the moment, what's happening with the mainstreaming of the psychedelics, I think there is going to be a lot more harm done just because people are seeking them desperately, because they've tried everything. They are so stuck. Living in the post-pandemic era, I think it's really bringing people to the edge, and they just want to have this one thing and put all of their hopes in it and desperately want to experience it. And I think that's a very, inauthentic angle to approach the medicine. So I'm happy for you to share more on that if you'd like to. Levi, maybe you could say a few things.
Okay. Yeah, no, super, super important not to do it on your own, and everybody reacts differently to it, or your tolerance is different anyways. And so there's been many people that have come through, and I think that's one thing where the Iboga clinics really get it wrong, is they dose based on somebody's body weight, when really it doesn't have anything to do with that. And so, if some of the people that have come here, if we would have dosed them based on their body weight, I mean, they'd still be going, multiple day journeys, and it just becomes really, really difficult for them. And so, people, you need to be with somebody who knows this medicine, and most importantly, how to dose it. And you can take really big doses, and it's not, if somebody is in decent physical shape, it's not so much that it's dangerous, but just emotionally for them. You can imagine, if you're going 3 nights without sleep, on this journey, eventually start coming to the limit of it, and so we try and really try and take people deep and go in and get what they need, and then come out and then sleep, because we know when people sleep and recover, that's when the gifts of the medicine begin. And then once they get that, then they're, even more excited for the next one to continue that.
I understand. So this medicine works a little bit different. So the insights and the work, the real work, begins after the experience. Is that what you said? Once they've recovered, when you're in the middle of it, it can be difficult to kind of see the benefits of what's going on. But then once they recover and come back in, and they're in this nice, clean mind, they're calm, they're very aware of their thoughts, and that's when they realize, wow, things have shifted, and then they just have more confidence in the Iboga itself and what it can do. Yeah. So is this a very distinct understanding, I think, with this medicine that's probably not really out there yet fully. The educational part is so important, because I think, learning from the traditions and the traditional use, how is that informed your approach, especially Levi, and as a provider and in service of providing the service? How did it inform you looking at this medicine?
It's really given me everything. So as I look at it, there's between the Bwiti and the lessons, and Iboga itself, I think of them really, really as one. You could probably have Iboga and figure out a lot of it, but what we do here when people come in, we essentially share these Bwiti lessons that come from the tradition, from the beginning, and walk all through them. And within those lessons, there's pretty much within that, there's pretty much a lesson on how to approach many or nearly all things in life. So there's some that have to do with managing your own mind, your past, your future, relationships, the relationships with yourself, the things you tell yourself. And so sharing that with people is really powerful, because what happens is then they have the Iboga, and as they go through the process, they get to know those things from themselves, because it's very different listening to somebody say something, or reading a book about something, and actually experiencing it and allowing it to become part of you. And so, we're a happy medium. We're not, it's not like Ibondo where Leo went. We got the Bwiti elements that we need to properly provide the medicine and do that. Along with people get to lay down here. Why they're through the experience. At least in my initiation, you had to sit upright all night. Keep your eyes open, staring at this torch, this fire in the middle. And so I think it is helpful for people to be able to lay down and go into the experience and go inside themselves. And so we kind of have a happy medium of Bwiti setting here.
That's brilliant. So you're based in Costa Rica, Levi, in a retreat setting, and this is where you provide the services, right?
Yep.
And your team, you are a Bwiti initiate, and you also have your team working there with you.
Yep. We have a crew of anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 6 people, including myself, through the retreat. So we have kind of a core staff, and then we have different people that come in and help and, want to be around the medicine. And once they've gotten to a certain point in their growth, we can definitely have them here. And so we only have 7 people per retreat. So there's definitely plenty of attention for people, and somebody always by. That's the thing, when people are here, once the medicine goes in, you got to really kind of have somebody around it all the time, because things are going to come up for people, emotions, and just being able to guide them is going to help them along. And so, we're on a beautiful property, not super big, about 5 acres in the mountains of southern Costa Rica. And it's like 70 to 85 here year round. So really, really nice climate. And we grow a bit of Iboga here and at another location as well. And we came down here during the pandemic. We were up in northern Costa Rica in the Guanacaste area before, where it's really, really hot. And the pandemic brought us down here, and we're much happier down here.
Okay, brilliant. And how long is the initial experience, and how long are the retreats? And is there only one time medicine served, or is it 2, 3? How does it work?
Yes, so the retreats here are 7 nights. We serve the medicine twice, and then people, if they've recovered, can have a bit of medicine on some of the days where we go on nature outings or go to the river. They can have little bits as well. And so we have nights 2 and 5 are when the people take the medicine, and typically that's you give them like 48 hours to kind of come back. The intense part might be the first anywhere from 15 hours or so, and then it kind of very slowly tapers off. And so two full experiences with the medicine, which kind of like Leo was saying, for a lot of people that's enough for a lifetime. Send them, back on their path, like know where they're going and lead them from there.
Wow, that is really unique, for sure. I did hear stories that people take Iboga. They say it's a medicine that you're restricted in your movement physically. Is that true?
Yeah, you can get wobbly, or as the medicine's coming up too, it can make you a little twitchy. But people lose their balance. So, say they have to get up to go to the bathroom, or they want to go around the fire or something, we have somebody that guides them over. But usually people can get around. We just kind of put a hand under their arm and lead them. There's some people sometimes that need more help. And so, people are able to typically talk or, be able to communicate with you. Might take a couple rounds for them to understand what you're saying. But people are still there.
Okay, so they are aware of who they are, and they don't lose that sense of their own identity. Is it purgative? What are the experiences like? Sensational? Like, what are the sensations? Is it painful? How does it feel?
Yes, the purging definitely happens a lot of ways with Iboga. We got vomiting. It's kind of the reverse of ayahuasca, where people typically don't have to do number 2. It actually kind of stops you up a little bit that way. Some people sweat, definitely peeing a lot, maybe some crying happening. I would say 65% of people do orally purge at some point. And it can make you nauseous, but the nauseousness is part of the healing happening. I really, after being around this for a while, I really think it's a lot of nauseousness. There's physical nauseousness, but the nauseousness with this is more just working the emotions out of people, from down below and bringing them up. And so, there is definitely purging.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Leo, what was your experience like? How long it lasted for you?
That's a great question. My experience was very intense. The initiation itself took just under 3 weeks, as the whole program, to do it in Gabon in a traditional way. And in terms of the ingestion of the medicine, the ceremony itself lasted, I think, 2 or 3 days. And then the visions continued, I would say, for 5 days. And then for kind of 6 months afterwards, I had persistent, mild visions, or like what I call reality distortion, where, I'd be talking to someone and they would transform into an animal, or I would get certain blocks in life, and it was just the medicine working in a very visual way for me. So in terms of the intensity, it was very intense for, say, 5 days for me. And this was in a traditional initiation in Gabon that was an extremely high dose. I'm guessing that Levi wouldn't facilitate his people with 70 grams of Iboga. But for me, it was the perfect medicine for my experience and what I needed and what I wanted.
How many grams did you say?
70.
70?
Yeah, 70. About 14 spoons of Iboga.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And then for that type of dosing, yeah, definitely. People want to have Iboga in that way, do it in Africa for the huge doses like that. Yeah. Because Leo will tell you it's not just like you're there with one guy or, a shaman, like there's a whole group of people that are there for you.
So this is an initiation ceremony for you. So you are initiate as well, Leo. Yeah.
Yep. In the traditional approach in Gabon, anyone who works with Iboga and does a full initiation, which is basically eating as much Iboga as you can before you purge or before you vomit it up, then you're a Bwiti, then you're initiated into the school of Iboga, the school of Bwiti.
So how many tribes, what's the landscape? You said they started, this medicine was, it belonged to pygmies, and then they kind of started sharing. So what do we know about the history of the medicine? Either one of you wanted to share?
I can do a brief overview, but it's probably a better question for Levi because my experience is more about people's personal experience and my personal experience. But in terms of what Bwiti is and the initiation and how the medicine was shared, it's really, it comes from a combined belief, I think, of animism, which is believing that there's a spirit behind everything, naturalism or naturism, and then also like there's a dash of Christianity in there. And my understanding is that it comes from a gradual kind of communal collective understanding and working with Iboga, working with the spirit of Iboga, and it teaching people over many different generations how to work with it, how to live, how to be the best people in their life, and then passing down that transmission, that knowledge for many generations. Wow. Levi, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that sounds like it. Yeah, I know Tateyao has elements of thing in his Bwiti. Our Bwiti, we don't have the Christian element to it, but no, that sounds like it.
Wow. So coming back to the dosing, so there is a microdose, because I've heard a lot of people are microdosing in the West now for addiction, alcohol and other kind of hard drug addiction. So obviously, is it known to does Bwiti people know that this has been microdosed in the West? Like, are they kind of aware? Because I'm guessing, or do they have this practice themselves, or what did they use it for?
Yeah, no, I think they microdose, or whenever people are in ceremony, like everybody's getting a bit of medicine, so they're aware of it in that form. Some of them are probably aware that it's being used as microdose medicine, and I think that's really going to continue to grow because Iboga is an amazing microdose medicine. It initially, with the pygmies, one of the main reasons they would take it is for hunting. And so makes your eyesight a bit sharper. It gives you stamina to go on long treks, hunting game. And then through that too, the Bwiti also approach life as a hunter, like not necessarily for game or for an animal, but just hunting what you want in life is a good way to look at it, and like taking the steps that you need each day to get yourself where you want to be. and the end goal, of course, should be some happiness. But and it may really quiet your mind, microdose levels, and I think it's pretty powerful.
And what about the ceremonial dose? And obviously the initiative or initiation dose is like huge. Have you heard anyone taking like 100 grams, or can they? Is it possible?
Yeah, my friend Gary, a mentor, and he's a partner at Iboga Wellness. Yeah, he had like 100 grams during one of his initiations. I haven't had that much, but I've taken quite a bit. But he went for like 3-4 nights, and was getting confused about what day it was, and so it's really, really long. So there's some groups where, unless you're totally laid out and like not moving, they're going to keep trying to get medicine in you. With that said, it sounds like Leo got the full workout, but I think most people that go to Gabon and have Iboga now, they're probably not getting that huge of dose. Like, that's really, really big. But if you're healthy, it's just going to be a long journey. It's not gonna hurt you. And one of the things post Iboga too that you don't hear a lot about is like the immune response, and especially with aches and pains, arthritis, joint and tendon problems and things, the body just feels a lot better, and it seems to up the immune system quite a bit as well, where people don't get sick a lot, or especially one that we get quite a bit is people with like herpes outbreaks. And there's been many of them that come, have the medicine, and then don't have any outbreaks from that point forward.
Okay. Wow. Brilliant. And what about the ceremonial dose? So if anybody just interested in just having their own healing ceremony, what would be the amount given?
Here, anyways, it really depends on the person and their tolerance, but we've had some people where we've given them, a 5 gram, 6 gram scoop, and they've gone for a couple nights on that. And then there's other people where you might get up into, like here anyways, 35, probably 40 grams would kind of be the max that I've ever given somebody here. And so it ranges somewhere in there. I would say the average dose to get people, if I had to average it out, to get people to where they need to be to get the work done, is somewhere between 15 and 20, maybe a little higher, 25 is kind of the average, somewhere in there.
I see. Okay. So what about the health implications? Because I am hearing also that it can be quite dangerous for people with heart problems or heart issues, or anything that you could share on the concerns and the risks of the health.
Yeah, no, that's an important part. One thing I'll say to that is you do need your heart to be in good shape. You got to be in relatively good shape. But a lot of the complications that have come up have happened during an Ibogaine detox. Somebody is there with that condition, taking Ibogaine in probably large amounts, and going through some sort of addiction. Like with what we do, like psychospiritual retreats here, we've never had like a true medical emergency, where we had to rush somebody to the doctor or anything like that. So I think most of the complications have happened during a detox session. And so with that said, yeah, there is things that you need to be aware of, and high and low blood pressure, heart problems, the medications they're taking is a big one, so a lot of people have to stop or really lower their dose on certain medications before they come through. Like probably the most common one that people have to stop coming here, kind of like ayahuasca too, is SSRI medications. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's definitely some things to look through that. But if you're relatively healthy, not on a ton of medication, your heart's in good shape, like you'll probably pass the screening process. And we've had a couple women in their 80s come before, and we've had several people in their 70s come as well.
That's incredible. I am also aware of Dr. Gabon taking the medicine, and he's kind of 70 something. So it doesn't really matter what, it's not age dependent then, it's just kind of being more healthy or fit for the experience rather than the age, right?
Yeah, it's the big picture. But if somebody is, relatively healthy, vibrant 70-year-old, no major conditions, then yeah, they can have Iboga, with the proper screening and looking at the big picture.
Right.
Susan, can I add a few things in there just very quickly about that? One very good general rule I received from a few facilitators interviewing in the book was to presume that all medicines will interact with Iboga. Like any kind of pharmaceutical medication, any other type of plant or supplement that you're taking, presume that it will interfere with Iboga and develop a plan to, gradually reduce the dose with the doctor, with the healthcare professional who can help you wean yourself off. And then also the other one was that there's this myth online that 1 in 100 people that works with Iboga faces like death or serious health complications. And that's wildly incorrect. I interviewed many facilitators that have initiated or treated hundreds, if not thousands of people and never had a complication. And the myth exists from how Iboga first came to the West, in that there was a doctor in New York City who was an opiate addict, and he started treating people for opiate addiction. And so unfortunately, a lot of people who first started working with Iboga were coming in very poor health. Maybe they'd been chronic substance misusers or had chronic opiate problems. And then because they were coming into it in such poor health, that's where the complications came from. So for most people, if they're doing it with a great provider, if they've got a healthy heart, they have an EKG or ECG heart test before, they've weaned themselves off or developed a plan to get off medications, Iboga is very safe.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. Perfect. So as we're coming towards the end of our conversation, I'd like to ask both of you if there's anything we've missed or if there's anything you'd like to share around this medicine so our listeners can have more informed, idea about what this is, and, if anyone's interested, so they have a more sort of healthy education on this medicine. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll say, from my perspective of seeing this, hundreds of times or over 1,000 times with people coming through here is, what I see. And we definitely get people here that aren't spiritual, don't care, like Leo was an atheist. I used to be an atheist as well. What really happens from my perspective is Iboga brings the soul fully back inside and centered within oneself, and gets the mind, body, and soul operating as one again. And so Iboga is very much soul medicine, and it just takes the soul and brings it back fully in. As we go through life experiences, hurt ourselves or abuse ourselves, or other people abuse us, our soul looks to protect itself and kind of moves to the side to not get hurt anymore. And so Iboga is one of the few things that can rapidly bring that back in and bring somebody back into balance. And how it does that, Iboga and what we teach here, like the most important part to healing and living a good life is we have to appreciate life and be grateful for living. We talk about that in our Bwiti, that our life is the greatest gift that can ever be given, and nothing goes above that. What do we know anything bigger than life? I don't. Maybe there's something on the other side, but I can't experience that right now. But so people come in like really kind of at the last point, like, this is kind of my last shot, and Iboga brings that appreciation for life back into them, being thankful for their life. And then once you have that, then, you have a foundation to then build from, because you realize your life is the greatest gift. And this is our shot to be here. This is maybe our one opportunity to live, at least in this way. And so, yeah, that's how, those are two of the more important things that I see happening with people.
That's so beautiful. I always say it's all about being a good navigator in the mundane. It's all about being here and being good to ourselves and to others and the planet, right? Because that's the only tangible thing that we're experiencing directly as humans. So that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Levi. Leo, what would you like to say?
I would say that this is a wonderful and extremely powerful medicine that I've met many people who it's radically and massively changed their life in a very positive direction. But I would also give a warning that this is not a medicine you can do by yourself. And it's really good to take it slow and to find a facilitator or practitioner who's really done the hard yards. Someone like Levi that's, facilitated for thousands of people, has taken the time to study and really become a brain surgeon with Iboga. Because there's many people out there that are doing lobotomies and, they'll come to someone's house and serve medicine one night, or you can order it off Instagram or something like that. And I liken that to giving yourself a lobotomy. Like, you can either work with a brain surgeon who'll really help repair your brain, optimize it, and change your life, or you can work with a lobotomist who will also change your life, but maybe not necessarily for the better. So my advice to people is to really take it slow, find a great facilitator that you resonate with and you really feel is in alignment to you and what you want to do, and then embrace it. If it feels like a very strong call for someone that they 100% want to do it, let it happen and let it unfold in its perfect time. And if you're 99% certain, or, oh yeah, that sounds cool, I would say stay away. Enjoy your time without it. And when it does become 100%, then welcome it into your life and consider doing it.
That's that's a great advice. Thank you so much for reinforcing that again and again. Brilliant. So one last thing, what are you guys working on right now, your projects? What would you like to share? We will add your links and provide your information and your bios in the show notes. For now, Leo, also, what is your intention in writing your book? What can we learn? I know you said you interviewed lots of people who are working with this medicine. So, and what are you working on right now?
Yes, so a few questions in there. The first one, the intention for the book was really to dispel myths about Iboga, to raise money for conservation, because Iboga in the wild is critically endangered. So, 55% of the royalties are going towards Iboga conservation. And then it was also just to help to make a resource for people that they could have one place to go to find the best hits from all the different practitioners, facilitators, and people that have worked with it, of how to have the best experience for them. And in terms of my own personal projects right now, I'm working on a second book, which is called Mind Engineering. And it's based on all of the teachings I've learned from studying with indigenous practitioners for the past 8 years. And I used to be an engineer. I used to be an atheist engineer. So it's kind of taking those two frameworks of understanding the lessons and teachings from my teachers in Peru and Gabon, and then applying that through an engineering framework to make it digestible and easy for people to help improve their life. So yeah, the next 3 years for me is working on that book, living in Peru, learning and helping promote this book.
That's so brilliant. Thank you so much. Great initiative. And thank you so much for doing this work. The more education out there, authentic education, congruent is the better. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Levi, what are you working on right now?
Working, and definitely the conversation with you, like I know Iboga can help so many people. And so, yeah, getting the word out that, it's not just an addiction tool is a big part of like reaching out and doing interviews and things like this. I'm pretty simple. Keep bringing groups in, small groups at a time, and trying to help them change their lives, following Iboga. Like the path of the Bwiti and the medicine is really beautiful because it never ends. It continues going and things just become deeper and deeper. And yes, so I'm pretty happy. and definitely getting some Iboga growing too. We hope to be in a spot in the future where, we have our own supply of Iboga to, for the people that we bring in here, to not have to, get it from Africa or anywhere else. And so definitely working on that end. And yeah, what else? Being a dad is a big one. So I got a daughter, and so being a dad and just living life.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and congratulations for being a dad. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you both taking time to be here and speaking and sharing your experiences. Yes, forever grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So nice to connect, and thanks for sharing.
And looking forward to looking into your books as well, Leo, and highly recommend it. I think these resources are going to help tremendously to those who are trying to learn more and have that right education. And hoping to have you guys back at some point, because we do love a returning guest. So maybe down the line, like 6 months to a year, we'll have you back again to see what's been going on.
Okay, beautiful.
If you're open to.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
Brilliant. Thank you again. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Please do comment, share your experiences, ask a question, get in touch with myself, Leo, or Levi. We'll have the links in the show notes, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.